Welcome, everybody. Let me see what I'm supposed to tell you. This is the Marin Women's Political Action Committee Endorsement Night, or Endorsement Forum. I am Tamara Hall. I have a huge committee, the Endorsement Committee, and we'll start with our, what we call the panel of questioners, Michelle Barney, Jean Friedel, and Renee Marcel. We've got our timekeeper, who's extremely important for the candidates, Stephanie O'Brien and Vita Flores, her assistant, to help make sure that we keep everybody on time. And we've got Greg Brockbank, who is creating index cards. I put that in quotes. If you have questions, what? Do you have index cards?
I have index cards out in my car. You want me to get them?
That would be better.
You're so good. You're such a good organizer.
Thank you.
I'll give them a key to my car.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we'll have index cards. We were making up index cards. I love it. Normally, Michelle is the MC. I get to take over for her this evening. She wasn't sure she could organize the whole process, but, oh, what do you have?
We have recycled paper.
Okay. Well, there we go. That's really green even. Totally green. I love the people who bring their own 3x5 cards. Okay. So it sounds like Greg has a lot of options. If he runs out, I think we still have a backup plan. Other people, so Greg Brockbank is also on the committee, and let's see who else is on the committee. Samantha Sargent's on the committee, but she's not here tonight, and I believe that is, I've covered everybody. So tonight we are covering, as you can see on your agenda, we are covering the assembly race, a lot of school board races, and the Novato Sanitary District. The school board races are Dixie, Kentfield, Novato, San Rafael, Sausalito, Marin City, and Tamalpais Union High. So we're going to cover all the bases. And our usual practice is that we endorse women and recommend men in races where there are more open seats than qualified women candidates. And tonight, I'm pretty certain, I've double-checked it, that is the case in every single race, that it's possible that a man could be recommended tonight. So good luck to all the men. Because we always need those good men. While we definitely are about supporting women, we also want to support the good men. We all need to work together. So candidates will each have 2 minutes to give an opening statement, and then we will have a question and answer session. They will be the questioners. Each candidate will get 1 minute to answer the question, and we will rotate who answers the question first, because a lot of times the answer might be ditto, so you want to be the person who gets to say it every once in a while. And then if you have questions in the audience, Greg, as you all know, is supposed to have index cards or some sort of paper that you can write on. If you don't have anything, he will be collecting them, and he will be handing them to the questioners. So you won't be raising your hand in the audience. Questions go to the questioners. And let's see, what else do I have? At the end of the evening. So at the end of the evening, oh no, I should go back because I didn't cover the timing. So with Stephanie and Veda, the big thing for the candidates is keep an eye on them. Your 2 minutes, they have a 2-minute sign, they've got a 1-minute sign, they have a 30-second sign, and they have a stop sign. And I will get up and stop you if you're not paying attention to the stop sign. Like, we'll let you finish a sentence, but not a paragraph. So keep that in mind. Keep an eye on them. If they start waving yellow, better pay attention. Right? Okay. So at the end of the evening, the members of the Marin Women's PAC, as we like to call ourselves, we will caucus to discuss candidates, and everybody will do their final votes on who they think that our organization should endorse, and we'll collect all the ballots. If you need to leave early, give your ballots to Greg. Oh, okay, or Dottie. And what else do I have? We do ask that you stay and listen to all. Oh, yeah, well, that's for candidates. We do recommend that you stay and listen to all of the candidates in the races before you make your decision, but we also know that a lot of people already have their decisions made. On the ballot, I have to read this because I always get this wrong. If you do not want your vote counted in a particular race, please choose the abstain option. So for those of you who have ballots, you can see that there's the candidate names, and it says no endorsement, and then it says abstain. If you would like to recommend no endorsement and have your vote counted, please choose that option. So if you write abstain, to get an endorsement or a recommendation, they have to get 51% of the votes that are submitted tonight. And the votes have to be submitted here tonight. They can't be proxy votes or, sent by email. You have to be present to submit the ballot and complete the ballot here tonight. To get the 51%, let's say there's 50 people who vote. If 10 of them say, I abstain, then we only need to get you 51% of 40. But if 10 people say no endorsement, then you're still stuck with trying to get 51% of 50. So I know there's a lot of confusion around that. I'm happy to explain it again, and we can go over it again at the beginning of the caucus. And for candidates, this is a really big deal because somebody bent one 2 weeks ago when we were here. Do not touch the microphones other than to hit the button that turns it on and off. So when you're up there, they all have, you can see the little red lights at the bottom. You hit the button that says push, it'll be green. Don't touch it other than that. Because if you break it, we have to pay for it. And that'll come out of your campaign contribution if you get endorsed. I'm just saying. Because I'm treasurer too. And I will remember. Other than that, I think that's it. So we just want to thank everybody, the candidates and the members and just the supporters for coming out and joining us tonight. And we just hope everybody has a great time. So we're going to start with Assembly. And in the Assembly race, we have Dan Monte and Mark Levine. Mark Levine was not able to join us tonight. He had a family commitment. But Joan Lubomirsky, one of his aides, will be giving a statement on his behalf. So we'll only be asking questions. If that's another thing to bring up, I guess. If the candidate is not able to attend tonight, they are allowed to send a representative to give a statement. That person cannot answer any questions for them. They can just give an opening statement, the 2 minutes, and that's it. They can choose to stay on the days if they want, or they can leave. It's up to you. All right. Push it on. There you go. Don't touch it.
Am I first?
You're first.
Oh, hi. I'm Joan Lubomirsky. I've known many of you for many years. I first came before the National Women's Political Caucus at the Blue Rock Bar when I was running for City Council in Larkspur, and I was pleased that that group endorsed me, and I've received support over the years. I was Mark Levine's second employee. He hired a chief of staff in Sacramento, and then he hired me to work in the district. And one of the important things to Mark and really to us on his staff, and he has a good staff, if I do say so. One of them is here, Samantha Hunt, who just graduated from Dominican, and she's great, is community outreach. In fact, we had a literally standing room only workshop here on end of life right after that legislation passed in Sacramento. And we did a lot of outreach into senior citizens groups, and really there were people of all ages who were vitally interested. We also had a great workshop on wildfire at College of Marin in February that was very well attended. Some of the recent votes, and we're going to have another one on September 29th at College of Marin on climate change. Some bills I'd like to tell you about is that Mark voted against the PG&E bailout, which is something that I am really pleased about. He co-authored SB 100, which sets a goal of 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045. And on a personal note, our district director, Melissa Apua, couldn't be here because she has a 5-month-old, I guess, little boy now. And Mark has said, bring him to the office whenever you'd like to, and she does, usually at least one day a week. And she was going to be here, but he needed to get home. And also, again, anecdotally, 3 of the 4 people in our district office are women, and I think that's something that I like, and we're a really good group. We work very well as a team. He's been endorsed by the nurses, the Democratic Party, and I'm pleased to work for him, and I hope you'll consider supporting him.
You need to turn your mic on, Dan.
Thank you all for this opportunity to share my campaign's goals with you. And thanks to the courage of Marin women, this is the only public forum for this race. Our state assembly is the governing body of the 1 in 8 Americans. It is the governing body of the world's 5th largest economy. I was asked to run because of my 50-year track record as a social justice activist and an environmental activist, to engage the community, to build consensus, and to get things done. I was asked to run because Sacramento's agenda has not prioritized the needs of the working people, of middle-class families, nor of our environment. I was asked to run because Sacramento has instead prioritized the agenda of their corporate donors. I am the only candidate who has pledged not to take the corporate cash. I am the only candidate willing to stand up to special interest and their money with a vision and the means to make change a reality and not just a campaign promise. Our campaign is entirely focused on engaging voters, listening to their needs, and strengthening the democratic process. And the voters are telling us that now is the time for our assembly to pass the guaranteed health care bill that our Senate passed just 15 months ago. The voters are telling us that now is the time to address the runaway cost of housing and to address the fact that our schools, our public education system is not fully and fairly funded so that all students and every student can have success. Now is the time for our government to work for the people and for the planet first. Thank you.
Mr. Monte, could you please tell everyone what your priorities are and in which order for your district?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And in 1 minute, I'll try to encapsulate that. Addressing basic human needs of housing, healthcare, education. The second priority is campaign finance reform. Right now, we have a government, as exemplified by the Assembly killing the health care bill that our Senate passed 15 months ago. They killed that bill without a single hearing. And that was basically because of their corporate donors. And the third is clearly the biggest problem that this world, the state, and our country has is addressing climate change.
The population in California is growing exponentially, yet there appears to be no plans to build more public higher education universities. What are your thoughts about this challenge?
Well, my campaign is focused on providing college education and other forms of higher education beyond high school for all students who want to go there. When I graduated from high school in 1966, college in California was free. Basically, it was tuition free and fee free. And we need to get back to that. In the 60s, the issue was the Soviet Union and their technological advantage. They put a satellite up before we did. Now our technological problem is much greater than that. Our problem is climate change, the effects of global warming. And we have a democracy crisis right now where the needs of the people are not being addressed. And we need to have our students fully versed in how to function in a true democracy.
I'd actually like to expand on that because I had a little talk with somebody this weekend that made me think about this. As you know, with the public universities, they now allow a certain amount of people from outside the United States to enter the public schools, which means less and less space for the people who have kids who have been paying taxes and all of that. And I was just talking to a young capitalistic entrepreneur this weekend who told me that he can get paid $20,000 to process applications for Chinese students. That kind of blew me away a little bit. So, I mean, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, this makes it even less. I have a 3-month-old grandchild. I'm advocating for her early on, so there will be enough space for her in the universities if she tries hard enough, if she makes the grades that she's supposed to. And that's my question. What are your thoughts about that? These kind of capitalistic opportunities for people to process people from outside the United States.
Well, I was a business owner most of my life. I believe there's definitely a role for private business, and the person you talked to sounds like he was very entrepreneurial, and I don't have a problem with that individual effort. My problem with, my concern with, is when our government is controlled by larger companies directing the agenda in Sacramento. When it comes to public education, I thought it was part of our Constitution that we would have space in our colleges for every student who qualified to get there. And we're not doing that now. We're forcing kids out because we have increased the cost, and we need to reverse that. Our country, our state, needs to get kids through school, and they need to come out without a ton of debt. They need to come out debt-free. So that's why I promote tuition-free college, and by tuition-free college, I also mean fee not encumbered by a ton of fees.
Thank you.
Mr. Monte, do you have any specific goals at this time for the funding of K through 12 schools?
Well, yeah, the California Teachers Association has a full and fair funding of our educational system, K through 12. Sure. And I think we should do that. We Proposition 13, 40 years ago, really hammered our school system. We should go back and reevaluate Prop 13, and there's going to be on the ballot now, in 2020, the ability to split the role so that commercial, excuse me, corporately owned commercial property will be assessed differently than residential property. So I support that. There are other programs out there, plans for oil excise taxes. I generally feel that we need a broad-based tax system. We need to relook at how we fund the government. So specifically for that question, other than fixing Prop 13,
Thank you.
let's stick with it right there.
A question from the audience is, why should I vote for you over Mr. Levine?
Thank you for that question. Like I mentioned in my introduction, I have a 50-year track record of working in community, building consensus, and getting things done. I am going to bring essentially those initiatives that you folks in the community have been working on with me and others and bring that to Sacramento. What we have right now is an organized group. The most organized group in the state are the businesses, and they have the profit motive to get what they need done. So when we pass, and as an example, a health care bill in our Senate, our Assembly can kill it without a hearing. So when we pass a bill that is directed towards improving our transportation system and making electrified, which is a good thing, we take out of that bill the need to reduce our petroleum by 50%. That's the power of fossil fuels, the hundreds of millions of dollars they've been putting into our Assembly and Senate for too long.
What are your thoughts on fire protection? You know, lots of fires in California, and I remember when they used to have people in towers that sort of overlooked, you know, the areas, and wouldn't it be much more cost-effective if they had more of those kind of, you know, situations rather than letting everything just burn? Cameras, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Well, technological solutions, I think that CAL FIRE has probably got the best ideas on what to do for that. Local emergency preparedness is important. We have the neighborhood response groups, which are bringing communities together so that they know who their neighbors are and making sure that they know how to deal with an emergency if something happens. It's not just what happens in wildland now where we build out too far into the natural world that's a problem. Coffee Park in Santa Rosa, which burned in a matter of hours, was a suburban in the town of Santa Rosa. So yeah, we have to address this. We have to,
What are your thoughts on it and how to address it besides?
do you want to give me another minute
Oh,
or
I'm
two?
so sorry.
Okay.
It's a time
You know, we had these
constraints.
big problems to deal with, and you got 60 seconds.
I
Yeah.
know.
You gotta be ready.
I think we have one more question.
One more
Okay,
question.
some communities in California have no funding at all for fire, and they have been asked to self-fund. So I'd like to hear if you have any ideas with respect to that, or perhaps you haven't heard it, and if not, then I'd ask to.
Yeah, I guess I
Follow
need
up
to
on
know
the
what
other
sort of
question.
communities don't have funding.
They're more rural.
Unincorporated, they have to pay an extra fee to the Board of Equalization, I believe. So if you don't have a local fire district, you have to pay a CAL FIRE fee to the Board of Equalization. Is that what you're referring to? Or are you talking
There are
about
no county
communities
fire
themselves?
departments that,
No, some of the areas, I mean, I live in San Quentin Village, and I'm being told that I'm expected to pay this CAL FIRE fee, and yet we supposedly have, I pay, I'll look at my taxes tonight, there's a fire district but anyway, so these unincorporated areas, I believe, have to pay this extra fee. Is that what you're referring to,
No, I'm
Renee?
referring to
Or even,
more out there communities
Oh.
where nobody lives.
oh, okay.
well, the communities where nobody lives, there won't be anybody to pay those fees. But if the state starts mandating that local communities provide services, then the state needs to provide the monies to do that. And I think that's an appropriate relationship. And I think that the state might need to up its game and support communities that don't have the funds. And make sure that communities are providing a basic measure of fire protection.
No, there's no
Okay.
closing statement.
All right.
So we're-
No, there's no closing
7:30,
statement?
I think.
Okay. So you have no more questions? No more questions from the audience
Unless he wants to expand on what the question that I asked him.
on the
Then he
fire?
has like
Does
20
he have the
seconds.
time to do that? Or-
You have a minute.
Okay.
You could ask
That was
him
about
a
the fire
follow-up-
question, about what your thoughts are to, specifically to address, the fire danger in California.
Okay, so our environmental crisis right now is what's causing our fire and vulnerability. We need to address that, and there are processes that we use in agriculture that are being innovated now in Marin and Sonoma in agriculture that increase the carbon in the soil, and what that does is increase the ability to hold water. Those methods can be applied to our wildlands, and I think we should investigate how to do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
All righty.
Do I get a closing moment?
No closing statement, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, it's the number of candidates tonight. We'd be here till 12.
Okay, I misread the email.
Thank you so much.
So I also wanted to point out for candidates that there is, I believe, water in the pitchers and cups.
That's a good idea.
So if you need water and you're up there, Michelle will test it and see if there's water in that pitcher. Yay.
Okay, hold on.
No, go ahead, sorry.
So next up, we have the Dixie School District.
Entertainment in between.
Oh, really? Okay. Is it okay if I move the pillow?
Diane, I think you forgot your pillow.
Oh, thank you.
It's nice to see when candidates like each other and we're willing to sit next to each other.
I'm sitting over there. Just kidding.
It happens, but not tonight. This is good. So Megan, we'll start with you. You get a 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Megan Hutchinson. I'm running for the Dixie School Board, and I do like my co-candidate here. I believe that I can serve the Dixie schools in a particularly unique way. I was a student K-8 through the K-8 district. I was then a teacher at Miller Creek later on, and I'm now a parent of 2 kids in one of the elementary schools. My passion for education spans decades, and I have a track record of dedication to every student's success, a reputation for integrity, and a unique understanding of our district's many strengths and its challenges. Long after I was a Miller Creek student, I graduated from Stanford University. I then stayed and got a master's in education where I focused on policy. I always thought I would be doing good work for schools. I ended up deciding to go back to school, and I got my teaching credential and taught at Miller Creek for 4 years, which was fantastic. I studied summative and formative assessment. I volunteered in bilingual classrooms, and I've studied education from many different perspectives. While I was at Miller Creek, I didn't just teach, although teaching is a serious job. I also ran the basketball program. I coached a girls' basketball team. I co-led the Honor Society. I led students backpacking in Death Valley. That's fun with 8th graders, let me tell you. Probably my favorite experience. And I served on the site council. I also co-authored the Miller Creek Successful Distinguished School Award application. In addition to my teaching experience, I then went to law school. I'm now a full-time law professor. I also practice employment law on the side. But in law school, I focused on education law. I published articles. I was a teaching assistant for an education law professor. So my background this is what I'm sort of made to do. If elected, I would identify solvable challenges for our Dixie schools, such as how to increase the budget reserve, to improve community engagement, and to build on every teacher's strengths to encourage creative and inspired teaching and learning. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Brooks Nguyen, and I'm also running for the Dixie District School Board. Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here. I love this group, love the support of women in the boardroom. I think not only should there be more women in the boardroom, women need to be empowered to speak up when they're in the boardroom. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and sociology. I have a culinary degree. I'm a culinary educator. I was fortunate enough to have a Marin County business for 12 years. I sold the business in 2017. After getting the business off the ground, my primary focus within the business was the finance and the budget. So I hope to use those skill sets to apply to the school board. I have 2 children, ages 8 and 10, in 3rd grade and in 5th grade. Throughout their school years, I've been an active parent volunteer. I helped create a district-wide school lunch program. I've sat with the homeschool club, volunteered with Can Do, which is our educational foundation, and then I helped create the equity and inclusion group on our campus. I'm running for school board because this is an exciting time in our district. We have a new superintendent after 22 years. In addition to our new superintendent, we also have 3 new principals on our elementary campuses. I'm hopeful that our board will be able to focus and maintain an adequate budget reserve, continue exceptional teacher retention, and continue the open communication that they've started with the unions. I encourage inter-district collaboration in hopes that we can all put our strengths together to further the children and further education. The Dixie District is a good district. It's a traditional district with a strong history. I hope that new energy will foster growth and make the district exceptional.
First question to Megan. What can you do to create a school board that is transparent and representative of the school community?
Thank you. I think as far as transparency, the board meetings currently are very poorly attended. I am frequently the only community member there. Sometimes Brooks and I are the only community members there. I think the board meetings, the way that issues are discussed is it's using school jargon, And I understand it, I have a background in it, but it's not very inclusive. It doesn't make people want to come. So sometimes decisions are clear that the board is making, but it could be far better if only the communication were clearer at board meetings. As far as transparency, I also think we have an issue with communication, that the board, sometimes decisions are being made without the board's knowledge. The GATE program was cut over the weekend, and the board was not the first to know. So I think that's an area for improvement. As far as having the board represent our community, I think it's quite difficult. We have 3 people running from Dixie School, but our community is wider. Our community is far more diverse than the board members would represent. But I think having taught at Miller Creek, I feel like I have oh, excuse me, sorry.
Same question or different question?
Different.
You have the same, no, you have the
Same
same
question.
question.
Same question,
Same
okay.
question.
That's one of my assets that I bring to the board, an active parent that's engaged at all the campuses. And I think that for transparency, if we could get the word out earlier and have the parent community understand how items are put onto the agenda so that there's more open communication between the board and the parent groups, I think that it will definitely help the transparency within the district. I think there's a lot of room for inner collaboration all the way across the board.
Thank you. Okay, what do you believe are the greatest challenges affecting the students, and what are the roles, what is the role that you believe the board has in addressing those challenges? Brooke?
Our campuses are unevenly balanced by population. I think it's something that our district really needs to look at. It's something that comes up periodically, but I think that the actual school populations, the numbers per school need to be looked at and evaluated so that we make sure that every campus is getting the services that are needed and that the services that are available are equally divided between the campuses.
Okay, and the question was the challenges that the district is facing?
Yes.
Okay. I think one of the current issues is meaningful differentiation in the classroom. So with the elimination of the GATE program, which many people support, many people oppose, but there isn't necessarily meaningful differentiation. There's the goal of differentiation, but our kids all have their strengths and weaknesses, and ensuring that every child receives an education at the level where they are. I think that's one of the challenges. I also think we had 20 staff, teachers and staff leave last year, and so ensuring, really working on what makes teachers want to be in our district, and I think that's reigniting a passion for teaching. Having been a teacher, I know how it feels when you're passionate about what you're teaching and how it feels when you're not. And I think encouraging the conversation among the teachers about what would bring that back for them so that when they're teaching, they feel that passion and students have that passion for learning. I think that's been lost to some degree.
How do you balance the children with special needs education with the needs of the remainder of the student body when it costs more per pupil to teach an exceptional needs child, aside from the limited contributions from the federal government?
I think all students can be taught effectively in the same classroom most of the time, and I think our district actually meets the needs of its special needs students fairly well right now. Again, that goes to my issue of differentiation. Students all learn in different ways, whether they are high-achieving students, struggling students, students with special needs. I think they can all be taught. Again, it's a matter of supporting teachers to meet their needs, and it's very hard. I've differentiated across an 8th grader who was reading the books I was reading and an 8th grader who was reading at a 2nd grade level. I've seen that in the same classroom. It can be done. It is quite a challenge, but I think it's not necessarily a matter of the resources, it's a matter of the support for the teachers. So, not a matter of the resources per student. I think if the district puts its support behind teachers in terms of their professional development, they are all capable and interested in teaching all learners.
And I agree with Megan 100%, that if you can really support the educators and have an open conversation about what they need, and if you can look at the populations within each school and make sure that the services that are available are being equally distributed amongst the populations, and that you can really be in touch with the educators and what each school campus can do to support their educators and support the teachers, I think that's the best way to address. The resources are always a challenge, always a challenge.
All right, that's our time.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Novato Unified School District. And I believe Dottie, here she comes. Dottie, okay. There you go. No, I moved him. So Dottie, you have the option of staying on the days for all the questions or not? Okay, so you know how to turn it on? Yeah, you can be first, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
you turn it on.
All right, I'm Dottie Lemieux. I'm representing Diane Gasson tonight. She couldn't be here because her daughter had surgery today. So she asked me to read a 2-minute statement. This is her statement in her words. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Let me tell you why I believe I would be a good candidate for the Novato Unified School District being vacated by Shelley Scott. I have 25 years business experience in the legal, banking, and technology industries. I've sat on several NUSD committees, volunteered in the classrooms and gardens, and co-chaired Measure A, which brought over $4 million a year to our schools. The main reason I want to be on the board is to provide parent representation. My perspective and input as a parent with children in the schools will be important for making decisions and policies which are directly impacting our children. I understand the financial difficulties our district faces, and I would like to use my accounting, finance, and operational skills to work on viable solutions. I have worked in several industries where there were significant financial downturns, and I'm confident my experience can be of use. Finally, in my role as a community member, I believe I can help improve community support for our schools by increasing and modifying communication to the public. We need help and need the community to be supportive. In closing, I would like to share a sentiment I heard on CNN from Andreas Schleicher. The school system of today represents the economy we will have tomorrow. We need to do something now. I want to be a part of making the economy of tomorrow something great. Thank you.
It doesn't want to go on? Derek, can you push? No, he needs it for this, so if it can't come on, you may need to move over. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Azadeh Hunter, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity of letting me present and ask you for your endorsement. The reason that I am running, the main reason that I am so passionate is I am also a mother in the Novato Unified School District. I have 3 children, 2 of which are currently enrolled in the Novato Public School, and 1 that will be in the next 2 years. I have a 3rd grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. The reason I am running is I am passionate about Novato. I am a Novato graduate myself. I graduated from San Marin High School in 1997. Went to college in Marin. I went through the whole California district transitions. And as a person who has seen Novato as a student and as somebody who had no horse in the game, and as a parent, the school district has changed. Everything has changed since obviously the 80s and 90s. Technology has changed. We need to keep up, and we need to have a fresh pair of eyes onto our school board to keep up with our daily challenges and daily advancements. The main reasons as I would like to run is, 1, you need a parent on the school board. You need somebody who's on the playground, who's on the campus, who has their finger on the pulse, and they know what's going on. I am I'm a secretary on the San Ramon PTA. I am a secretary on the North Marin Council. I am the secretary on the Novato Mothers Club. So I am very passionate about our community, very passionate about our children. And I would like to see all children and across the board in Novato get the same resources that we do. Some of our schools get more resources than other, and we need to bring them all back to the same and make it a equal playing field. Thank you.
Good evening. I too would like to thank the Marin Women's Political Action Committee for hosting this event tonight. I have been endorsed by this committee for my last 3 elections to a school board, and I just wanted to thank the committee and for your support over the years. In addition to endorsements from the Marin Women's Political Caucus, I'm also endorsed by the Democratic Central Committee of Marin and the Novato Democratic Club. And it's probably important to let you know that I was elected to the 2008 Democratic Convention in Denver to represent Hillary Clinton prior to my release in support of President Barack Obama. So I just wanted to start out by saying that it's been an honor to serve my community in the Novato Unified School District for 13 years. And during that time, we've been through a lot of changes. We've been implementing the local control funding formula, which is new. We've been implementing and working on what's called the Local Control Accountability Plan, which is a special set of funding that comes to us to deal with the disadvantaged and struggling students. And during this time of my tenure, I'm proud to say that working together, we've developed a new graduate profile, and this new profile has an emphasis on the whole child. So we've added things like character, cultural competence, critical thinking, and communication in addition to the A through G academic requirements and in order to graduate through the Novato Unified School District. So with that said, I'm happy to take questions, and my flyers up front for you, my community service and history.
Okay, where's Novato? Okay. So I'll ask the general question of what do you believe are the greatest challenges affecting the students in Novato, and what role do you believe the board has in addressing those challenges? We'll start with you.
Azadeh.
Thank you.
Azadeh.
Thank you. Azadeh.
I think Novato Unified has done many things over the years that have been very, very helpful and have been great to Novato. I can tell you from experience when I was going to San Marin and they started the academy. I think as of current, the biggest challenge right now is the resources for a teacher, as it is across the board, across the state. I think our teachers need a lot more resources that are being offered. I think we need to provide the same resources across the board, across Novato Unified, from Hamilton K through 8 to Pleasant Valley. You know, some schools may be more affluent than others, and we need to be able to give all the teachers the same amount of resources for all the students. There's no reason we should have certain students that have a lot of higher disabilities going outside of Novato Unified to get the education that they need. So it goes back to getting the resources to our teachers.
Well, generally speaking, I think the issues that face our students are our culture and our society today, and a lot of it has to do from an academic perspective is technology. And I'm very proud of my record in helping to facilitate and build a strong network of technology as far as the tools to help students learn. It's technology is a medium. It's a tool to learn. It isn't so much about learning how to program and be technology, though that's an important part of it. But what we've done at Novato Unified is invest for years now on building up that infrastructure, providing Chromebooks, trying to get we call it one-to-world, where we get Chromebooks into the hands of all of our students. And I think the development of our graduate profile, which again brings the the concepts of cultural competence, critical thinking, and communication into their education versus teaching to the test and what used to be called No Child Left Behind.
I think we'll start with you, please. Have you thought about budget cuts, how they could occur without compromising the children's education? And have you thought about consolidation of services that could result in cost savings for the district, which can be allocated to programs and staffing that perhaps are subject to budget cuts?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
As long as I've been on the board, it's been a battle to deal with the use of our resources. Unfortunately, Novato Unified is facing declining enrollment, which means we're going to probably have to be consolidating some of our schools. And it's a constant battle to come up with ways to keep a focus on the student in the classroom, to have good programs, to be innovative with the technology aspect, to keep up with the new Common Core standards. But at the same time, we have to be providing our employees and our teachers the compensation and the support that they need to do a good job. So this is a delicate balancing act that I think all trustees and future trustees will constantly be working on to solve. As far as consolidation, I think Novato is led as far as partnerships with the county and trying to provide services with other districts along the lines of either busing or food services or special education or even self-insurance policies along those lines.
This is, clearly I'm very green to this, so I would have a lot of learning to do my first few months of my first year on the board. And I would absolutely take the knowledge from the board members that have been there for many years and look at their expertise. As far as a parent goes, I have been through it. I was there when I had friends who, when Hill closed. And we have to look at the numbers as far as consolidations go. What resources can we pull from within our community that we can help give our teachers? Our teachers have to be compensated, and our teachers have to be compensated to be comparable, where they don't have to go outside of our district to make $20,000 a year. Or we have to give our teachers the resources. I don't necessarily know if consolidating a school is the best idea. However, we don't know until we sit there and we look at what Hill brought as far as comparisons go. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to budget cuts, we have some very hard decisions to make, and we have to work together as a team with Novato Unified to see what's in the best interest of the students and teachers.
Thank you.
To start with you, do you support changing a Rancho to a neighborhood school?
Yes, I do. And the reason, again, being is one of my biggest passions in Novato is we need to make all the schools equal. We need to make sure that all of the schools from Pleasant Valley, San Ramon, Hamilton K-8, we got to make sure that they're all getting the same amount of resources. In order to get the same amount of resources, you have to have the same playing field. I think Rancho, being a community school and neighborhood school, will give the teachers more opportunity to get more resources. I am a parent that is in support of Rancho absolutely being a neighborhood school.
Yes, as a board member, I was active and led on the issue of converting Rancho Elementary School into a community school. It is now a community school. It's the type of thing that took a little care and thought and planning, and we came up with a way through grade levels to transition it to a community school. And I agree with Azadeh as to the reasons why, that all of our schools need to be able to provide equity in education, and that system that was there when I was originally elected didn't seem to fit the community anymore, so I was glad to be part of that change.
I think that's our time. I know, it flies, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Next up is San Rafael.
Yeah, right. Who's up?
It starts with whoever sits closest to me.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm Rachel Kertz. Thank you for having me here tonight. My family loves superhero movies. Avengers, Captain America, Black Panther, and of course, Wonder Woman. Well, I'm the guardian. My superhero power, words and action. In the truest sense, I'm a defender and protector of our community of 7,400 students in San Rafael. I've been active in the community for many years, and I'm passionate about public education. When I joined the board in 2013, my greatest hope was that we could align the sites and focus on what is best for all of our students, teachers, and staff. Today, we have achieved so much, and we continue to push our goals and vision forward. 2 years ago, we were faced with a charter school petition. I worked with our community to advocate that a charter was not right for our district. I listened and I learned a whole lot about charter schools, looked at the big picture, and was a voice for our community. Fortunately, we were successful in that challenge. I have 2 boys who went through San Rafael schools. One is still at Terra Linda High School. And I know there is no one more passionate and driven than a parent advocating for their child. That is what I do for all of our students. Over the years, I learned to work with parents, administrators, community members, and to achieve positive results. In the San Rafael community, I am known as someone who gets the job done. Remember my superpower? Words and action. The organization and teams I work with depend on me because they know I take on tasks, I'm loyal, honest, and I deliver. I've had hard conversations and strive to have open communication and collaboration. I am proud of the work I did serving on the steering committee for the passage of our bonds. We can now modernize our schools, and I am dedicated to making sure these funds are well spent as we move forward, these projects forward. Appreciate having your support and acknowledgement of the work that we are doing.
Good evening. My name is Natu Tuatagaloa. I'm a 50-year resident of San Rafael. Can't believe I said that. I went to Glenwood Preschool, San Pedro Elementary School, Santa Benicia Middle School, and San Rafael High School. I graduated from San Rafael High School in 1984, went to Cal, played football, went to the NFL, played 6 years, and then came back to raise a family. I've been involved with the education in this community since I came back, actually since I first graduated, being a mentor and sometimes coach and sometimes role model for a lot of the athletes between 1985 and 2001 when I was elected to the board. I've been on the board for 17 years. I've been involved along the way with all of my kids' education from kindergarten all the way through high school. I've been a proud supporter of all the elementary schools and the high schools in the district. I have overcome many challenges with our governance team, including possibly losing a battle to the annexation of Terra Linda into another district, which would have caused some serious financial crisis in the district. We did incredible outreach during the economic downturn. We did many community outreach events, which were able to educate and prioritize where we were going to spend our money. We made great cuts away from the children, which was the most important part. And after that, there's been a whole host of issues that we've had to deal with in terms of the budget, trying to maintain our reserves, make qualified decisions. And my goal has always been to represent all the children of San Rafael. Growing up in this community as a minority, I understand what it's like looking from the outside in. I understand what it's like to not have what other kids have. And fortunately for me, the power of athletics was what kept me engaged. It also helped me create relationships with all the other kids on a level playing field. I take that message out in the community every day, and it helps me make my decisions when I'm looking at some of the tough ones. And again, they're all based on what's best for all students. I think our governance team has done a great job over the years. And I think with the passage of this last bond and the last parcel tax, I think we're really trying to support our kids in every way that we can. The next challenges for us are going to be, again, finance in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. My name's John Marker, and I'm also running to be on the San Rafael School Board. My family moved to San Rafael because of the promise of our community, of what it can be when we live in a community that looks like the rest of California. And over the last 6.5 years, I've had the opportunity, as we've started our family, to be called on by our community to serve in a number of ways. And having the opportunity to be a part of the Marin Kids Board, the Marin Promise Board, the board at Rodef Shalom, and funding the next generation, but also by day serving our students. And I get to work on a team that leads 2,000 young people all across the state of California to get them involved in civics on a day-to-day basis. 90% of whom are young people of color, 2/3 from low-income background, and 2/3 who are women. And the reason that I do this work is because as a former 8th grade US history teacher, I don't think there's anything more important than being involved in the community where you live. Rachel had the chance to mention the Ipso Charter School initiative, and I was really pleased and grateful to be part of the community that stood up and opposed that initiative, working with the board. And through doing that work, I had the opportunity to build relationships with all 5 board members, and also to see opportunities for where we can continue to improve our governance team. And I saw 2 main initiatives, or 2 main viewpoints that were missing. One, that no one on our school board had ever taught in a classroom, and I thought that that would be a valuable piece to contribute. Another is that no one on our board has young children in the schools anymore, which means, as was mentioned in the previous discussion, no one else is on the playgrounds, no one else is at drop-off and pickup, and by the next election, not a single member, except myself, would have kids in our public schools. And so in talking with other members of our community, saw this as a great opportunity to bring that voice to the board, to be a member of this team, so that we can continue to improve upon the communication across our district, the partnerships that we have, and also, as a result, improve student learning. Thank you for your time.
So what is the biggest challenge in the San Rafael City School District, and how does a board member help to overcome that challenge? Starting with Diane?
There's challenges, for sure. I think one of the ones for me that I like to focus on are the establishing pathways for all of our students. And early on, our kids there's not one single answer for all of the kids. And when you look at our graduation rates, we absolutely do need to understand the work that's needed to address those pathways. Some will be college focused, some will be career and technical focused. And we're doing a lot of work right now in working with College of Marin and other organizations to establish those technical pathways as well as college pathways. A through G requirements work for some, not for all. Identifying early on, even in the middle school right now, we established increased counseling support services at Davidson Middle School to work with our students early so we can establish those pathways before they get to high school. That's critical. And even if we can move it back the very beginning, we will start to work with those families very closely to move them forward. So I think from a challenge perspective, making sure we need to ensure everyone graduates.
Okay, the most challenging thing in the district today is the learning. How does the learning occur in the classroom? And that's where the rubber meets the road. So having qualified staff and teachers in the classroom working with kids, that's where the learning begins. So how does the teacher make that connection with the learner? It's developing an air of trust. It's telling them that they care, showing them that they care, so that a child feels like they belong. And when they feel like they belong and they're cared for, then the learning can begin. And that's the most important part of our job, is to try to support our teachers and make sure that in the classroom where the students are, the job gets done. That's where the learning begins. As a board member, in order to solve those challenges with the budget the way it is, and with housing to be so expensive in San Rafael and Marin, it's a systemic problem. So in order to do that, it's going to take community partnerships, it's going to take out-of-the-box thinking, but trying to overcome the economics of having teachers come to this district, to live here, to teach long, and to stay here, that's the biggest challenge. Thank you.
Aligned all 3 of us on this, that if the mission of our district is raising achievement for every child every day, we need to be focused on student learning here. This is something that I have expertise in, both when I was working as a teacher at the 5th lowest performing middle school in the state of Maryland, and making it so that the 300 students that I worked with in my 2nd year of teaching, when they made it to their state test in high school, passed at the highest level for their entire county. I know what it takes to lift student learning. I'm thrilled that our board, for the first time, had a specialized data session in the last couple of years this past Monday. And in that data session, there was a discussion both of the graduation rates, which were mentioned and have been on a 5-year decline, but also of some of the bright spots. And I think it's important when we're diving in to student data, we need to understand what needs more attention, but we also need to understand how to lift up the story of what's working and figure out how to take what's working and the teachers that are leading that and the schools to share that across the other 13 schools in our district.
My mic. Okay. Would you be in favor of a yearly survey of families, students, graduates, community residents, faculty, staff, about what they see as the major strengths and shortcomings of the district and its schools? And would you be open to publicly sharing those results?
100% yes. I think that, as has been shared in some of the other pieces, it is often that I have been at these school board meetings and I am the only member not paid by the district to be at these meetings. They are not, the families in our communities aren't able to prioritize coming to the meeting, but have lots to say. And we need to be going out into the community for families. My day job is all about getting student opinions involved in our school system and beyond. But also I want to hit on the community members who aren't parents or students, because that's 2/3 of the households in our district. But they still should feel included in our school district. They should still feel welcome at any time. And they should feel that we want them to be a part of it, because our students are only going to thrive if they feel that the community of San Rafael is wrapped around them and wants them to be included, from the business community to the sports community. And this is our opportunity to really bring that in, and I would look forward to sharing those results widely so we can all improve together.
Yeah, I would agree that, we've had plenty of surveys in the past. This type of a survey is another one in the range of trying to be having an inclusive process for all of our families and staff. And I think that our board currently, as a governance team, has done a really good job of accepting that responsibility of hearing the feedback of things that are working or not working. I think one of the things we need to do better is celebrate the wins, because we do a lot of things right. But in terms of having a survey, one of the things I like to say is that when I'm out in the community, every day is a survey. There's always something that comes up. There's either a teacher that talks to me or gives me a call or sends me an email, or there's a parent or community member, what's going on with this or what's going on with that. And I think the role of the board members to be accessible to the community, answer those questions the best we can, bring the question back to the governance team, discuss it, understand what the next steps are, what the direction might be, to really try to get ahead of some of the issues that are out there in the community. Many times, issues can be solved right at the site level. Some of the issues grow a little bit bigger and they need to be handled at district level. But having a good governance team to point the direction and vision of the district and hold the superintendent accountable to handle that, that's the job of the board.
I'll add on to what Natu said, which is exactly right. Even tonight while we were here, I got a message from a parent asking a question. We do a Healthy Kids survey focused on social and emotional at the high school level. We look at that, I think it's every 2 years we look at that. And teacher and staff surveys are really important, and we're getting better at doing more of those. One of the best forums for gathering parent communication and input are really parent meetings, and we've done a lot of parent meetings, some small, some large. I was really happy to hear that last week at our district English language parent meeting, we had over 400 parents. And this was held at Davidson at the middle school. That's huge, and it was all conducted in Spanish. And they hold those meetings for, I think there's 5 or 6 sessions all year. For those parents, and they have different themes, each one really sharing the information. One of Natu's favorite sayings is early and often. Communicate early and often, and when there's problems, means we need to focus on that.
Awesome. That's your time. Yeah, no, we only give you 15 minutes. Thank you. Now it's time for Kentfield. All right, when you're ready, David, you are first, but you have to turn the mic on.
Good evening. I'm David Riedel. Thank you for providing the opportunity for me to present to you today. I am the son of a librarian and a research scientist. I've been in public schools my entire life, ending at UC Berkeley and graduate degrees and beyond. So I'm a big, passionate, lifelong believer in public education. I've been in Kentfield now for 10 years. I have an 8th grader and a 4th grader. And over the last 5 years, I've been very involved in the Kentfield Schools Foundation, which, as you may know, raises over $1 million a year for Kentfield schools. Actually, the last 3 years, I've been the co-president of that with my wife, Annie, and we raised over $6 million during our time. I want to continue my service to the Kentfield schools, and as the president of the foundation, I've been to every board meeting and every district finance committee meeting for the last 3 years. So I feel I have a unique understanding of the current issues that Kentfield schools face. My main areas of focus would be on the social and emotional well-being of all of our students, differentiation in the classroom beyond math, where it's had a focus, and better communication with our community. Our community, 80% of our community does not have kids in the district at this time, and so we need to have a better outreach to them. Every time we talk to them, we have our hat in hand looking for money. I think we need to have them more engaged throughout the whole life cycle of public education. Issues of particular interest to a Women's Political Action Committee are near and dear to my heart, with my daughter and wife facing these issues all the time. And I would definitely highlight the importance of self-confidence and the connection of every student to a strong and healthy community. I've been a strong advocate for mindfulness and wellness programs, which I can help build a stronger community in our Kentfield schools. Appreciate the opportunity to share my ideas, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, I'm Davina Goldwasser, and I'm a candidate for Kentfield School Board. I have 2 children in our schools, a 1st grader and a 3rd grader. And I'm running for the school board because I have 20 years of experience working on the same topics that regularly come before the school board and expertise that can be used to achieve the goals we've set for our district and guide our schools on how to achieve them and hold our schools accountable when they fall short. I was a K-8 public school teacher for 10 years, an administrator in the Peninsula, the East Bay, and San Francisco, and I currently supervise 5 schools for San Francisco School District. My day-to-day job involves supervising principals, developing school budgets, evaluating school plans. I'm a first responder, so I'm there for any lockdown or bomb threat, deal with police on a regular basis. I'm also our point person at the school, so whenever something comes up around a Title IX case or sexual harassment, I am the person that a family would come to and would help liaison with the school, with its human resources, and with our legal department. So I'm very aware of the training needed in that area. Okay. So since my children have been in the district, I've been an active parent volunteer, I've been on our school site council, and I'm often called upon to share resources with our district administrators. So our district only has 2 schools, very different from my work life, where I'm in San Francisco. And so one of the disadvantages of being a small district is that we're not as well connected. And so just on my cell phone, I have kind of every expert in the field of whatever may be needed. And so I'm often called upon. And over the years, with my oldest is only in 3rd grade, so I've just kind of gotten started. And my desire now to be on the board is to really formalize that. So for that not to be such an ad hoc thing, the principal calls me about a question, around immigration rights or things like that, but that I can really dedicate myself on a regular basis and bring that.
Okay, thank you to the MWPAC for moderating this candidates night and to community members who have taken the time to attend. My name is Heather McPhail-Schreederin, and I hope to earn your endorsement for the Kentfield School Board. I am a parent to 4 children currently attending Basic in Kent, and I'm a 4th-generation Marin native. Over the last 5 years as an elected trustee, I helped lead 2 successful bond and parcel tax measures to make our schools safer and prepared for 21st century learning. During my term, Basic and Kent have consistently scored among the top schools in the state as California Distinguished Schools, and Kent earned a California Gold Ribbon for Science in 2015. I believe outstanding public schools are fundamental to a thriving community. In 2013, I ran for the KSD board to help foster a more inclusive community and open, transparent communication. During my tenure, I have served on the District Communication and English Learner Advisory Committees and feel proud of our work to improve community engagement. Civic leadership and community involvement have always been important to me. For 20-plus years, I've served on national and local boards. Apart from the KSD board, I served as chair of the KSD Safe Routes to School program for 7 years and currently serve as vice president of the Kentfield Green Bay Historical Society. In May 2017, I felt honored to be recognized as one of the young women leaders of Marin by this group, the MWPAC. I have held executive positions in both the corporate and public sector in business development and strategy. I received degrees from Marin Catholic High School, UC Berkeley, and Oxford University. If re-elected, I will continue to ensure responsible fiscal stewardship of our resources, serve as an independent voice within the KSD board, and always be accessible within our community. Tonight, I look forward to hearing about the issues you care about and what initiatives you think will help all of our students thrive. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Killingsworth, and I want to thank you tonight for coming and for inviting us to speak. I hope to earn your endorsement. I'm running for the Kentfield School Board because I have 2 sons in the district. They started in kindergarten, and they're now in 4th and 6th grade. I have lived in Green Bay for 15 years, and I've been an attorney in Marin County for 20 years. I'd like to tell you why I'm running and what I see as the issues in our district. I am running because I have seen our community's potential for what we can achieve when we work together. I have been a leader in many areas for our schools, including chairing the Parent Education Committee for the Parent Teachers Association, co-founding a Basic Maker Night, which has over 700 attendees and is now a model for other districts. I ran the annual giving campaign for the Kentfield Schools Foundation, and most recently, my husband and I chaired the renewal of our parcel tax funding with Measure A. I've seen what we can do, and it's incredible things when we're working together. I'm running because I love our schools. I'm filled with gratitude every time I step onto the Kent or Basic campus. I want to see more of our community working together. Our children receive a terrific education, and I want to put my creative problem-solving skills to work to make it even better. I am an innovator with a proven track record of getting things done for our students. The issues and opportunities that I see for improvement are differentiation in our classrooms, fiscal responsibility, and community dialogue and transparency. I am committed to making sure that every student in this district receives the support they need, as well as the challenges they need to stay engaged. We need to continue to manage resources prudently, and that means both operating expenses and our construction. I have experience in nonprofit boards, preschool boards, and governance, and I analyze complex financial matters daily. District communications have improved in recent years, but I think that communications and community relations could be better.
This question is starting with you, Ms. Killingsworth. The question is, do you think it's important that school board agenda topics should be more accessible to the stakeholders? And if you do, list some topics that come to your mind as being important and discuss how you would make them more accessible.
Thank you. It's a great question, and it's an issue that I think is really important in our district. I think we absolutely could do a better job of making agenda items available to our community and our parents. Agenda items like the hiring of new staff, of the curriculum decisions, of the board policies around things like mathematics and other areas, differentiation in the classrooms. There are a number of topics that parents are not aware that decisions are being made until the decision has been made. And I think that if we included in our district newsletter not only the superintendent's comments and the 2 principals' comments, but also a section for the school board in every weekly newsletter, including upcoming topics at board meetings, so that parents could be aware if there was an important decision being made around schedules, start times. There's a number of different issues that I think our parents are interested in, and we often don't get that information until it's reached a crisis point. And I think having people have advance notice of what's in front of the board would enhance decision-making greatly.
Yes, no, it's interesting because 5 years ago when I was running for this would have been one of my number one issues. I would have said, no, we need to really increase the communications, particularly about board meetings. Because I always found it strange, like many people have said tonight, that when you go to a board meeting that no one would be in the audience. I thought, wow, there's something going wrong with the engagement part of it. You know, now sitting on the other side of this, 5 years later, I would say we've done many things to improve communication. I do think having a newsletter with links to the agenda, with a very clear board section on our website that has all the agenda items listed there, the minutes. But saying this, it's interesting, I was thinking about it. We do actually do board highlights, but the highlights happen after the fact. So it would be interesting if we, in the future, had what's coming forward, precisely what was just said here, in terms of looking forward, what you can expect at future board meetings. So very much agree with this, and more can be done.
So I think I would look at this and not going straight to the board meeting. I think some foundational work needs to be done in our community first for people to feel safe to actually show up to a board meeting or feel like a board meeting is really the right venue for them. And so with some of our families that are native Spanish speakers whose English is not, up to par to be able to follow along in a board meeting, there is no existing known support there for them. So there really isn't an open door currently or any dialogue around kind of the function of a school board at all. So there's foundational work before just sort of expecting, come here and have your voice heard that we could do actually at the school level. And I think that would trickle down into other areas, such as coming to the board meeting and expressing views there. I also think that we need to do better education of just the role of a school board. I found in running that my friends that are not in education really just don't understand what the role is. So that could be part of, our initial back to school night and just kind of educating. These are all the different communication structures that exist.
It's a great question, and of course, we all are going to resonate with the same sort of views. There actually is quite a lot of communication with our community in terms of parents. We made a conscious decision a few years ago to go to one weekly email, and I think that's gotten a little long, and some of the board stuff has gotten lost in that. So there might be a role for an additional district communication that highlights what's going on. But quite frankly, as Heather will say, it's often Sarah and myself the only two members of the public in the meeting. So the doors are there. They may need to be more open. There are some very important things, such as the Youth Truth Survey, which we were talking about, surveys and surveys of stakeholders. I think that really needs to be highlighted to broadly across our community, not just our parents, but everyone around.
Yes.
Why shouldn't or should the district merge with another district to save money?
Interesting question. This could be asked of any district in Marin. And it always strikes me that whenever I go to any school board related event that's at a state level, we are by far, when I say that, our Kentfield School District, 1,100, almost 1,200 students, is a minority. We do not, most districts in the state are nowhere near any of the districts in Marin, including our largest. Novato and San Rafael will be very small compared with the rest of the state. So I do understand the motivation for this. Saying that, I think that we have made great strides. In fact, there is a committee at the county level that looks at shared services and efficiency and effectiveness committee. So I think where the county has gone with this is that shared services in special education can occur. There can be shared services with nursing, obviously with anything related to transportation. There's lots of areas that I think could be shared services. Merging districts, I'm certainly open to the idea. I think right now, I don't know if it would serve the current structure of districts in Marin.
Sarah, let's go.
Okay. It's an interesting question, and having spent time looking at the budget, both when I was doing the annual giving campaign and the Measure A parcel tax renewal, when you look at our district budget, the vast majority of it goes to teachers and the professional staff. And I don't know that merging districts would particularly shave much off of our budget. We might be able to save on the superintendent's salary, but principals and other things I'm not sure would be reduced costs. And as Heather mentioned, when I went, the Marin County Office of Education had educational events for the candidates, and David and I went to a couple of those, and in one of them, they highlighted all the ways that the school districts in Marin share services and try and help minimize the costs of being a small district, and I was really impressed. There are a number of areas, Heather mentioned some of them, insurance, special education, transportation, and so I think it's always worth looking at how we can collaborate with neighboring districts and reduce costs, but I'm not sure a merger would be in our district's best interest or our students' interest.
It's a fascinating question, and of course, one that's going to come up when we have, 18, 19 districts in the county. But as Sarah indicated, the county is doing a really good job sharing services where they can, and so much of our expenses are people expenses that really wouldn't change. In addition, I don't feel like our local community would be supportive of losing that local control. They're strong believers in having that local control, and I think they're willing to support it.
So I agree with what everything has been said. I think that we need to look at what is the problem that we're trying to solve exactly, and also checking in with teachers. If teachers are our most valuable resource, would they feel more disconnected as a teacher to really serving the needs of our own district, or would they feel more supported because they had access to, wider teaching practices and a larger range of colleagues? So I would really want to do that analysis of every stakeholder group. I think the students would be fine either way, but I think in terms of the teachers and the families, like what is the draw? For a lot of people coming to Kentfield District, they love our little schoolhouse building district and having the two schools. So before changing something, we have to understand like what is it that people really appreciate before jumping to change something that's working.
Okay, starting with Davina. Differentiation is a hot topic right now. Many people feel that it is unrealistic to ask a teacher with 27 students to teach the average student, take time to help the students that are struggling, and also have time to challenge the more advanced learners. It's the opinion that 7+ math flexibility group students based on ability appears to have been successful. Since the 7+ experience appears to have worked, would you be in favor of trying similar class groupings in 5th or 6th grade? Why or why not?
Right, it's a hard question. So there will always be a need for differentiation at any school in any classroom, starting at the TK level all the way up to seniors in high school. So that has never changed in education, and that is actually an expectation when we go through our teacher credentialing program. That is one of the teaching standards that you get trained on, our strategies, and that's also what teachers get evaluated on, is their ability to reach all learners. That doesn't mean that it's easy. And so when I'm thinking about our schools and the questions that I've been asking is there an appropriate level of support, and what does that support need to look like for our teachers in order for them to feel like they can achieve what they need to around differentiation. But ultimately what I believe is in flexible grouping, so not in like a fixed way that for an entire school year a student would be in a certain grouping, but that teachers would be constantly evaluating and assessing where student needs are, and then providing appropriate supports based on that, so that it's flexible and that it can change and it's really based on student need.
Differentiation has been a hot topic in our district, as it has been, and sounds like in everybody's. We hire and retain the best teachers possible, and they do have the ability to provide that differentiation, whether it's 24 students, 26 students, or 27 students. And it's our job as the board to make sure that the resources are there and the vision is there to hire and support the very best teachers. Math has been a go-to topic for this because it's a place where people see numerically the differentiation. But I would challenge our district to make sure that we're paying attention to the socio and economically disadvantaged students, the different learners, the English language as a second language group. These are the places where we're seeing the test scores being very, very different for us, and I think that's the differentiation that needs to have our focus in the coming years.
Thank you. Sarah, yes.
Differentiation is indeed a hot topic, and I've been involved in our district in a conversation around differentiation of mathematics for the last 4 years. I think that we've made progress on that issue, and I do think our district has the teachers who are absolutely capable of doing it. I agree with what our other candidates have said about making sure they have those resources, whether it's materials or professional development. We need to make sure they have what they need to do the job. I think in terms of specialized, the 7+ class, which accelerates the students by a year of mathematics between 7th and 8th grade, when I've been in these conversations with teachers, with the administration, the concern is that in 5th and 6th grade, students are still developing, and if you have them tracked or in fixed groupings, that those groups are not going to hold true over time. And so flexible grouping or other classroom mechanisms for meeting each student's needs is a better path, especially with the younger students. I am committed to making sure every student, whether they need help, additional help, or additional challenge, gets what they need in the classroom.
Okay, this is going to be a lot of ditto because I think we're all on the same page in terms of the priority level in our district. There's probably no greater priority especially from a parent view right now. It, as was mentioned, it sort of reached a crisis point in the spring, like it does cyclically with math. But as a board, we made the decision as one of our board goals this year that differentiation is key, but not just in math instruction. The key is to have it across all curriculum in all classrooms and consistently done. So I think that's the really critical part. And I don't want to repeat everything that's been said already, except I do want to highlight what David said, because I think it's also very important about highlighting the achievement gap right now that does exist in our district among learners, English language learners, and children with learning differences. And that's something that we need to address, and it's very much linked to differentiation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is it. That's our time for you. Next up is Sausalito, Marin City. All right. We'll start with Bonnie.
Sure. Hi, I'm Bonnie Huff, and I am so honored to be here. I was the president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Marin back in 1992, which was the year of the woman, and I'm very hopeful that we will be able to do that again. I've been an advocate for children and women all my life. I started my career at Women's Way and then worked for the YWCA. And then was a founder of the Family and Children's Law Center when I was in law school and became its first executive director and lead attorney for 7 years. Had the opportunity to work with Renee in that capacity and was very active in the community. Was a founder of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame, was on the board of La Familia, on the planning commission here in San Rafael. And then 21 years ago, I took a job with the Judicial Council, which is the state office of the state court system, and working for the Center for Families, Children, and the Courts. And I work on domestic violence, child support, family law, and access to justice issues. I manage 6 grant programs and administer we give out $68 million in funds for legal services, self-help, and domestic violence agencies. I'm really used to dealing with budgets and administration. And I manage education programs for judges and court staff on domestic violence issues. We also have a self-help website where we serve over 4 million people a year with basic information so they have access to the court system. And as part of that, we have a site for kids on working with understanding the process of divorce. Through that time, I've been involved with national and state boards, but I moved to Sausalito 14 years ago, and I attend St. Andrew Presbyterian Church, where I'm a Sunday school teacher with Ann Lamott. And I know the issues that are facing the kids in Marin City, and I deeply care about them. I've worked with low-income people all my life, and I am aware of how it takes a village to support our kids, and I really hope to be part in supporting that effort.
Hi, my name is Jen Conway, and I am running for the Sausalito Marin City School Board. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and I look forward and am hopeful that I'll be able to obtain your endorsement. I'm running on a slate with two other very capable education leaders, Kurt Weinsheimer and Josh Barrow, who cannot be here tonight, but I believe someone will be speaking on their behalf. I have lived in Marin City for 13 years, where my husband and I are raising my daughter, Brooklyn. She's a third grade student at our local public charter school, Willow Creek Academy. Our family's committed to being engaged in the community, and I personally have spent the past few years going to the school district board meetings and doing some grassroots community education and engagement in the issues that surround our schools. Because like I've heard in many other cases, transparency and outreach and decision-making has been very opaque for us. Why am I running for school board? Well, we've made some good strides in recent years, but we still have a whole lot of work to do. And I'd like to take that unofficial grassroots role and make it official. I really believe in engaging the broader community in the discussions and the decisions that are being made that affect our ability to provide excellent educational outcomes for all of the students that live in Sausalito and in Marin City. For decades, families in Sausalito and Marin City, when their children got to be school age, they would leave the school district, whether to live in different communities or to attend private schools. Recently, with Willow Creek Academy, we've been able to come up with a viable school option, and we now serve at Willow Creek over 75% of the students in our school district, 60% of those from Marin City, and over half of them are in the high needs category. We still have an achievement gap at both of our schools, a lot of work to do, and a whole lot of divisiveness among the community stakeholders on what money should go to which school, and a lot of adult noise that's really distracting from a focus on the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Knowles. I am not a candidate. I am here to speak on behalf of Josh Barrow and Kurt Weinsheimer, who have applied for your recommendation or endorsement if it's available. Kurt and Josh are very sorry they couldn't be here tonight. They both unavoidably had to be out of town, and I didn't realize, for reasons I won't bore you with until I got here, that I was going to be doing this, so I'm going to be working with notes from my phone. Let me tell you a little bit about Josh and Kurt. Josh is a third-generation Marin City resident whose grandparents were among the original African-American shipbuilders who were brought to Marin City to build Liberty ships in World War II. Josh was raised around Marin and Marin City and elsewhere. He left to go to college on the East Coast, went to Harvard, had a great tech career out there for a number of years, met his wife, started a family, and moved back to Marin City, bought his grandparents' home, and is now committed to that community, has been on the school board for 6 years, is currently the board president for the last 2. Kurt has been engaged in the schools for the past 10 years, since before his 3 girls were even born, and none were school age. He is now serving as the Willow Creek board president, where he has helped build a successful public school that is probably the most diverse in Marin, 400 plus kids, no racial majority, roughly half are low income, etc. Kurt wants to build on that success and bring it to the district as a whole. Like Jen, Kurt and Josh would like to take a unifying approach. All the kids matter, regardless of which of our 2 public schools they attend. Our district has more than $8 million for just 530 kids. Money is not our problem. It's how we implement it, and they want to explore solutions that focus on unifying, whether it's combined public professional development or combining the schools entirely. They would like to actively explore that. Unification, not divisiveness, is their watchword. All the kids matter. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna have a question from the audience. The district has been running in a deficit for the last several years. How will you address that? Let's, are you stepping down? Sorry.
I can't
Oh,
answer
no,
questions, so I was
you're
just
stepping
gonna
down?
step
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that there are a lot of things that are on the board, and I think the interim superintendent is doing a great job at really looking at the finances of the district, trying to hone in on what's happening, and she has been making recommendations that I think make a lot of fiscal sense. I think that's a huge effort on the part of the board. I agree that there's money, and I think the challenge has been the coordination and the divisiveness in the district. And so I think that if we work together more effectively and work together with the community agencies in the community, that's how we're going to be able to accomplish it.
So there is deficit spending that has been year over year, and in the current multi-year plan has us going below the reserve level, mandated reserve levels, which is really dangerous. The solution to that in the current multi-year plan is taking $1 million in funding from Willow Creek Academy, that public charter that I mentioned that is serving 75% of the children in the district. There are other things. There are, for example, $1 million in the bank that's not being allocated to anything, much less the classroom. So I would explore how we can take that money and use it to pay down the loans. For example, we have like $200,000 a year in loans that are being paid for with interest piling up, that if we were to pay those down, we could put more money into the classroom. There are other things that we could also take a look at. A lot of consultant fees, legal fees, and frankly, there's no fundraising for Bayside MLK. So we should absolutely be doing joint fundraising for both schools and all kinds of other things. Thank you.
I have a unique perspective on this. My husband was a teacher at Bayside MLK for over 30 years, beginning in the 1970s through 2009, Dave Barney. I was perplexed as to why they needed two different schools. So, question from the audience, and I happen to agree, if elected, would you actively explore a combination of the two public schools? Why have two when there's so few students?
I could go first. I think that's an excellent question. I absolutely believe that looking at consolidating the schools is something that we should seriously take up. There are other different structural configurations, but I don't believe that we need two K-8 schools in our system. So I would actively explore what are the implications to doing that? What is the different configuration? Is it one school system with a middle school and K-5? But I'm absolutely interested in taking that on and rolling up my sleeves and figuring out how do we do it, because I think that we should.
Well, I think that the plan was to have a primary school and then in Sausalito and then have the middle school in Marin City, and it was built for that in order to have that as assistance. And then the charter school started, and the children were sort of differentiated. And unfortunately, there was a decision made a few years ago, and at that point, the Marin City School, as you know, was doing quite well. It was a distinguished school. It was a fabulous school.
Absolutely. Gate program, art program, music. Right. He taught woodshop. They had everything.
Right. And I think that the challenge was at that point the Willow Creek Academy parents were very engaged and made decisions that to move the children off to the school in Marin City. And I think there's been a huge detriment to the, it's obvious in terms of the achievement gap and other kinds of things. I think it's possible. I am open. I'm totally open to any kind of possibility that will raise the achievement for these children. But right now, in Marin City, there are only last year there were only 3 white kids in that school. This is de facto segregation, and it is not okay.
Assuming the schools are not combined, are you committed to yearly sharing the major ways you as board members evaluate the district's and the individual schools' progress?
And then Bonnie
Absolutely.
starts first, yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, you guys alternate who starts first.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
So, okay, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I think, actually, I think there's a lot of sharing going on, and I think actually this year there seems to be a big improvement in terms of the relationship between Willow Creek and the traditional public school, and I think that's great. We are a small district. We need to work together. Absolutely, we should be sharing what the outcomes are for all the kids. And I think the other exciting idea that we can be exploring is the idea of a community school, where kids and parents get the support they need at the school, where there's ESL classes, where there's job training and other support to get parents in, to get them engaged. And I think that will make a huge difference for the kids in Marin City, and clearly a lot of Marin City kids go to Willow Creek. And so the stronger that we can make that community and the community support, the better.
Yeah, I agree. I know in past years that it hasn't been super well received, but in the last year specifically, I think with the new principal at Bayside MLK, that the openness, in fact, interest in honestly working together, especially as it pertains to the high need students and the achievement gap, there's been a lot of collaboration. For example, I think there are some 7th grade students at Bayside MLK that are taking math over at Willow Creek. So like, I mean, really actual sharing of resources, sharing of best practices and programs has been really great. Restorative justice and restorative practices is something that I hope is the next thing that we're really able to meaningfully implement at Bayside MLK. That's been hugely successful in closing that opportunity gap. So the more time that students are actually in the classroom, the reduction in suspensions and detentions is the first step in closing the achievement gap, is making sure that they're in the classroom. So I'd love to see us work together in a more meaningful way on that as well.
Absolutely.
How do you solve the primary issue of serving all students, reducing the achievement and opportunity gaps while keeping the district solvent?
Well, in the short term, with that multi-year plan showing that $1 million reduction to Willow Creek, I think we need to take a look at those other parts of the budget that are not serving students in the classroom and reallocate those funds such that they do so. There is enough money that if we are able to reduce those non-classroom oriented allocations, that we will be able to keep both schools in the short term solvent and continuing to work towards progress on the achievement gap. So that would be the first thing that I would look at. And then, you know, like the one school solution, I think that is the longer term opportunity that we have, but some work needs to be done to figure out how that could work. But there's absolutely a way to make the budget work in the short term.
Yeah, and I think there's been great progress this year with the interim superintendent to look at explore options, whether it's combining with Mill Valley, whether it's a one-school solution, all different kinds of things, and I think that's going to be incredibly important. And again, I think that the idea of combining resources is really what's going to be critical for the school. We have incredible volunteers. We have incredible resources. We have tremendous funding per student, and we have kids with some really severe and important needs. And if we can combine those resources as well as the community resources, that's how I think we're going to make the difference. That's how we're going to be able to really make an impact in the lives of these kids. We have far too many kids who are not succeeding in high school, and that is just not okay for us in Marin County. We need to have all children be able to succeed.
On my mic. Other panelists have talked about differential education. What do you see as, if it's important, or do you prefer mega-cognitive instruction? Can you speak a little bit about that?
I think that those are not the issues that are being discussed in our district. Our district is working, because we both have, Willow Creek has a really diverse school body. I think everyone is working on both, you know, the basic issues, but also on cultural diversity and helping make sure that kids have the support they need to do a great job. But a differentiation is not one that I,
Be great
that
when
we're
we
hearing.
have that.
Yeah, yeah, we have tiny schools, and, yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree, and I look forward to the day when that's the discussion that we're having in our school district. I think that'll be a great day. But what we are doing from that perspective, and I believe it's at both schools, but there are individual learning plans, specialized, not focused on groups, but focused on that individual student and what they need to succeed in the classroom. I know for sure that that's happening at Willow Creek. Early intervention programs, we've been able to make some great strides, at least in the Willow Creek side, in the way that students are taught at the early ages, being able to keep them out of separate special needs or special education classes, so early intervention programs and so forth. But in classroom differentiation outside of that independent learning plan, I think that'll be great when we have that challenge in front of us.
And that's our time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to point out, Jen, you said your name is Jen Conway. We have you as Jennifer Irwin on the ballot and the agenda. So if you want to vote for her, she's Jennifer Irwin on the ballot. So next up is Tamalpais Union High School. We are in the final stretches. 2 races to go. Woo. Save the best for last, of course, right? You guys?
All the schools feed into Tamalpais.
So when you're ready, Cynthia, you would get to go first?
Sure. So how did I get here? I actually felt a little confused because I've served on the Kentfield School Board for 13 years, so hearing the discussion about that. But my term for Kentfield ends in December, and I was asked by parents in the district to run for this board because I have the experience having helped hire 2 superintendents in Kentfield, run 2 parcel tax campaigns and 2 successful bond campaigns, and really I think being on a high-functioning board in a high-functioning district. And then the other reason that I decided, to bite the bullet and run was I got a little bit angry. I got angry at a board meeting a few years ago at the TAM district because they were apologizing for having to go out and hire a superintendent, and it was going to be hard to find a superintendent that would deign to come to the Tamalpais district. And I feel that the Tamalpais district has extraordinarily strong schools, and I don't think they should be apologizing for giving someone the opportunity to work at the TAM district. Since I filed, Dr. Topier has stepped up from being assistant superintendent to be superintendent, and if elected, I look forward to working with her, and I think she brings experience to the district that would be helpful. I think what I can bring to the district is the experience with working together with the superintendent, with the principals as a high-functioning team. It's hand in hand. It should be dynamic in a district. It should invite dialogue from the sites. It should invite dialogue from the parents, from the community, and people shouldn't be afraid to push back on one another. The board makes the ultimate decisions on budget and finance, and so the board has to be accountable for that, but a well-functioning board works hand in hand with the superintendent and secures input from the districts. From the stakeholders in the district to offer the best package possible for our students.
Hi there, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited about this potential position. My name is Barbara McVeigh. I come from probably a very diverse background. And diversity that can really serve this board. I have 2 children, a 16-year-old, nearly 16-year-old daughter. She's at Drake, and a 12-year-old son. He's actually at Lake County at a charter school. I have homeschooled my kids for 4 years with an independent charter school, which really brings a different conversation to the whole thing and lessons that I learned that I actually want to bring in service to this board with diverse perspectives. I stepped away from my life about 6 years ago with the big question of what is the most important thing in life right now as I was pursuing work in the environmental movement, specifically with the ocean. And as I came face to face with some pretty harsh issues that we're going to be facing, our children are facing. We are in a very dynamic world right now where I do believe our children are entering a world very different than the one we have been leading, and these are questions that we really need to start addressing with our children. That led me to, after I was running a nonprofit, actually saved a nonprofit sailing organization that stemmed from the Oceanic Society, I pursued making a film which turned into an international film with some of the top leaders in the environmental movement, understanding some of the big picture things. And that's gone on to some other international environmental work, and then also some other film work. And with all of those lessons, I want to come back to the local level and serve our local community, which I believe is going to be a dynamic shift. We are excited to be here in Marin County, which is taking on these initiatives. And I think our students can really step up to the plate as we bring these challenges into opportunities. And that's where I'm stemming from. I'm a community builder. I love kids. And I want to see our kids thrive. I want to see our community thrive. I want to see us all thrive, and I think we can do it. Thank you.
We'll start with what do you believe are the greatest challenges affecting the students and the district? And what role do you believe the board has in addressing those challenges?
We starting with me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. The greatest challenge, I think, facing the district right now, now that the leadership position has been filled with superintendent, is the budget. The TAM district has been deficit spending. The last couple of years, it's projected to deficit spend. Thankfully, they had a healthy reserve, but being that it's a basic aid district, they don't get more money for additional students. So that's something that has to be looked at. And going along with that will have to be kind of an auditing of all of the programs and looking at how to reallocate resources to protect the education that our community expects for our children, and sets them up for success when they go out into the world, whether it's the working world or the college world or the pathway world at College of Marin or into the military. And so engaging the community, having that dialogue, having a strong board and superintendent relationship where we're not afraid to take accountability builds trust in the community. And I think the community can pull together and figure out how best to address the financial issues facing the district.
Thank you. We're lucky it's not $20 million in the hole. We're a dynamic community. We're creative. We're thoughtful. These are challenging times, and with challenging times, you come together and create opportunities. That's the way I like to think. We are going to have to look at programs in a harsh way. No, I don't want to say harsh way. In a way that can actually breed more opportunities. I think we can do that. Right now, the fear is, oh my goodness, are we going to lose teachers? Are we going to lose programs? I believe we're creative enough to solve this. This isn't just our problem. I mean, this is a national problem, quite honestly. And we have to think about the outside also, and not just our own little small world, and bring what is happening on the outside into our world and how we can actually expand ourselves to look at this problem in a more dynamic way, understanding that we're not alone. I think we have so many resources in our community to really step it up to solve the financial problem. I think it's an opportunity for us to really get creative in streamlining. I'll stop there.
This is for Barbara McVeigh. How do you balance the needs of special education children with the needs of the remainder of the students?
Great question. I come from an experience with my son who would have been perceived as a special needs child. So this is a very heart-filled subject for me. He's a high-spirited child, and I went through a big learning lesson with him when he was young. Really discovering that some of the needs that other children had weren't the same needs that he had. And with that, I think gives me a dynamic opportunity to see how community can really be a part of that. Those of us who have children know that they are also different, and they have different needs, and some need more attention than others. I think we have to, as a community, understand that some resources need to be devoted to those. They are part of our community, and we need to think about that on a holistic level. As a community, I was inspired by my handicapped janitor in elementary school, understanding that those with special needs actually added more dynamic understanding about humanity in my own life, and I would hope that our community can band together to bring them inclusively in our community.
Okay, I think the schools do a wonderful job. My children both went to Redwood. I did student teaching. After having been an attorney, I did student teaching at Drake, and do a phenomenal job supporting students. I do know that special education costs take a larger and larger percent of budgets. The federal law orders us to do various things, which is wonderful for the students, but it doesn't fund us at the level. So it continues to eat into the general budget, or the general fund. And so one of the things I would like to do, if I were elected, is work with superintendent to have an audit of various educational programs and see whether there are ways to reallocate those resources that still protect the education, but that can better serve kind of competing programs and costs. So it's a tough program. And I would look to the superintendent and the site leaders to make suggestions about where we can get more bang for our buck, I guess.
What do you think is the perfect working dynamic among the board, superintendent, staff, and students?
Starting with me?
Yes.
Okay, so the board hires the superintendent, and the board is where the buck stops in the district. So that's where the accountability is. In a high-functioning district, the board works with the superintendent works with the board, and the superintendent runs the district. And the superintendent runs the district with input from the principals, from the staff, from the students. And there's respect all the way around. Respect is also included in being asked or being able to ask questions, to be able to make suggestions, right? So from people on the ground might have more insight into how something works rather than something coming directly from the superintendent. And so a dynamic relationship that's an honest relationship and that people aren't offended when questions are asked.
Yeah, I'll ditto a lot of that. Respect is so important on so many levels for everyone. A sense of trust is very important, but within that, being open to the hard questions, because we are entering a very challenging time. It's a time to really set aside any egos, for example, and just be open to new ideas and to think through them on a high communicative way, in a high open way, and really be open to new ideas, and be okay with risk as well, given that we are going through very different times coming forward. I think collaborative spirit, honesty, so important, understanding that we're all on the same team and we all are driven by the same means. We want to see these kids just happy and thrive and go forward with their lives.
Do you see yourself, Ms. McVeigh, as primarily as a representative of the community or as a representative of the school system as a board member?
Representative of the community or a representative of the board? Is that the question? Well, given my experience with our community on a broad level in Marin County, Marin City I've been very involved in. I actually help a family raise their 2 children, a Latino family. So I have a very strong connection to the Guatemalan community. I've been part of the homeschooling. I've been part of the public school system. I feel I have a pretty good body of understanding of different perspectives that I believe can also serve this board and the community. My stake is the school district. That is my commitment. Again, my commitment is to bring the wealth of information that I've had from various projects and my community in order to serve on the board in order to make that thrive. So I am serving both. Thank you.
I think it's instrumental that the title is trustee, right? And so It's a steward of the district. It's a protector of the district. And obviously a good protector or a good trustee takes a lot of input from the district and tries to reflect the wants and the desires of the district. That is also governed by the education code and governed by expectations in the community. So I would say that we're more trustees rather than direct representatives of the community. It's not the House of Representatives where you're elected by districts and where you bring forward and promise your constituents that you're going to get exactly what they want. The board gathers a lot of information and then makes the best judgments possible with the finances and the education code to deliver the product to the district. So more of a steward of it rather than a direct representative.
Okay, I think that's our time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our last race of the evening is Novato Sanitary. Is Mr. Long here? I am not seeing Mr. Long. Is anybody here a representative for Mr. Long? No? I think it's just going to be the Carol Dillon Knutson show.
I'll tap dance.
And we've allocated 10 whole minutes, so we get 10 minutes of
Oh
Carol
my
Dillon
gosh.
Knutson.
You don't want that.
No, we could cut it short if you want, because you're the last thing, and then we go to caucus. It's up to you.
Okay, all right. Well,
Get to start with a statement.
I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm Carol Dillon Knutson. I looked it up. I have served 23 years of elected office. I can't believe that. I know. I heard somebody say that they did it because they got mad. Well, that's what I started out with. I got mad at something, and then look at what happens. I ran for the college board first, and then I was elected to the city council and mayor, and I served on ABAG, Association of Bay Area Governments, TAM, Transportation Authority of Marin, SMART, you know, that cute little train that's going along, actually is going. I've done lots of nonprofit work, Girl Scouts. I was a 4-H judge last year. I'm a master gardener and all that kind of stuff. So I've done a lot of things. Now, why am I on the board? When I retired from the city council, they asked me to run for the sanitary district board. My husband had served on the sanitary district board, various different boards for 44 years. So we have a history of public service. And I thought, why not? I just took his seat, and here we are. It's much more technical, so I've had to delve into my scientific background to deal with some of the issues that are going on, but it's great fun. It's not as political. We often don't have anybody in the audience, but we're doing a good job, and the district is really well run. We're very fiscally responsible. Oh, and now I stop.
Oh, now we'll have to ask questions.
Brief moment, you get to stop.
Should I go on, or do you want to ask me
Well,
questions?
we'll do questions, just
All
give you
right.
2 minutes.
Okay.
So, first question will be yours.
Thank you.
Start with you. How can the district promote more recycling and conservation?
Oh, that's exactly what we do, is we utilize the resources of our community to the fullest advantage by recycling, by doing all kinds of things. We just extended the e-waste recycling for every day of the week. Instead of twice a year, which is what we were doing, we have now recycling your e-waste every day of the week. And what they do is they break it up into individual materials and that is what gets recycled. I was wondering how this does. See, on the Sanitary District Board, you can find out all these kinds of things. And you may wonder why a woman is important on different boards. Let me tell you. I have had the opportunity to work on several sexual harassment policies. Now, sometimes, and review them and extend them, etc. Sometimes they are extended because there have been issues. Think about that in our climate. Anyway, so I have been able to do that and advocate for that. So that's an important thing. We also had some girls.
We have to give you a new question now.
Well, I want to
You
finish
could ask
this
her a
one
question
thing.
about sexual harassment policies. I'm just saying.
Carol, this is for you.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
This is the team. Well, actually, we had a situation where we didn't, there were some girls being exploited in our parks. And so we set together a curfew policy where a policeman would pick up a girl and they call the home and is Susie in bed? Well, of course she's in bed. It's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Then they'd say, would you go check? And they'd go check, and lo and behold, Susie was not in bed, and they would take Susie home. So we put in place a curfew with that kind of a policy. No blame, nothing like that. It's for the parents to have the information and to deal with it. We had parents coming out of the woodwork saying, how dare you victimize my daughter by a curfew? Well, after it was in place for a year, the parents were coming up and thanking me that they didn't know that this was going on, and so now we don't have that problem. So that's another reason to have women on boards.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you see as the most important issue facing the sanitary district now? That's part one. And then part two is there ever any overlap between the sewer districts?
Is there overlap? Not in Novato. Novato is a full-service sanitary district. Other districts are organized so that some people do one part of the service and other people do another part of the service. In Novato, it's all one thing. We also have the garbage franchise, which in some places like San Rafael has the garbage franchise. So it's organized a little bit differently. Is there overlap? Not in specific services, because Novato is organized a little differently than some other areas. But the issues, of course, are financial, and Novato is in very good shape financially. We have just remodeled the plant, the service plant, for $73 million, and yet we're paying on that. And it's going very well. What that is providing cleaner water to our constituents. We're recycling water. We are using recycled water on the golf courses, the schools, various different places. We were going to be, Napa was devastated by droughts, and we were going to send water to Napa, but that was too expensive, so we didn't. We're laying purple pipe. Purple pipe is the recycled water, and using potable water for drinking and showers and things like that, which is how it should be used. Okay, time again. Other questions?
I sent you a question. Check your text messages.
Well, why don't you say it?
Ask me the question.
So my question is, what is the sanitary district doing? Are they doing anything about converting wastewater into drinking water?
Not at this point. We have treated wastewater that we spray on the farm, the fields, off of Atherton and off of 37, where we raise hay and raise cattle. So that's where we're doing our wastewater, treated wastewater. No, we're not doing processing for drinking water, although other districts are doing that, and it's certainly possible to do that. But we don't need that yet. If we recycle our water, we are able to use fresh water, enough fresh water for drinking and showers and cooking and that kind of thing. So let me see. Oh, Novato has the lowest service rates. The lowest, this is the Carol Show.
You've got a minute. You've got a minute to wrap up the Carol
Glad?
Show.
Aren't you glad you stayed? Okay. Anyway, Novato has the lowest service rates, and that's been a very, very nice thing. It's partly because we do have the garbage franchise, and we had a service provider who was very low on rates. So with that, I will let you go. But
It's 9:15, which is when your time ends. So there you go. That's perfect. Thank you, Carol. Okay, thank you. So that is the end of all of our candidates coming up to the days and being asked questions. I want to thank all of you for participating, all of the candidates, all the audience members with questions, my questioner panel, Damien from the Community Media Center of Marin, who's filming this, and it will be showing up on our website eventually.